And, as we go deeper into the month of December, I've been asking a lot of the guests on the program, what kind of a year has it been with 2023? What kind of a year has it been for trucking, transportation in general? There's been a number of firsts, and there's still a number of concerns that are out there on the road today. And on board to talk about it, great to have back with us the Department of Transportation Secretary Pete Buttigieg. And Mr. Secretary, nice to have you back, sir. Happy holidays.
Thanks. Same to you. Nice to be with you again.
I appreciate it, sir. Thanks very much for jumping in. And, let's start with that question. What kind of a year has it been for the trucking industry, transportation, and the Department of Transportation overall? Welcome back. What kind of a year has it been?
Well, for us, it's been a year of extraordinary progress, but one that also sees a lot of work yet to be done in the new year. We have gotten an extraordinary amount of funding out onto the street, so to speak, to improve roads and bridges around the country, as well as our supply chains more generally. Now, it's also been a year of recognizing the importance of our supply chains. It's only been about 2 years since some of the issues that we faced from our ports to the trucking industry really woke up many Americans to the importance of goods movement right alongside the movement of people as core to what it means to have transportation in our country. And when I look at what's been achieved since then, from the results that have happened in shipping times and costs, to the truck parking we've been able to begin building to try to improve quality of life and safety for truck drivers. Lots of good work going on, lots more work remaining to be done for the new year.
You mentioned the truck parking. I know that you've been out and about visiting areas like Sioux Falls, for example, where there's been a number of new truck parking spaces that have been unveiled. Talk about that, the initiatives going forward. Expecting more of the same with those projects going into the new year.
Yeah, we're going to have to keep making sure there's more where that came from. This is an issue I hear again and again and again when we meet with and talk with truck drivers, talk about what it's going to take to keep people in the career and what it's going to take to make sure there's a strong quality of life. This isn't just a convenience issue, as drivers know so well. It's a safety issue. And whether we're talking about crashes or whether we're talking about personal safety, so important that everybody who's driving a truck have access to parking. So we have funded things like that South Dakota facility. I visited Louisiana, Caldwell County, Texas, I-4 between Tampa and Orlando. Got about 120 new spaces going in there. Memphis, Tennessee, we got a grant headed that way, $22 million, including adding 125 spaces there along I-40, which is such an important freight corridor. And we're encouraging states to do the same. It's not just the projects that we pick and choose here at the USDOT, but we really want this to be a nationwide push, and we want to lift up those states that choose to prioritize this and remind them that that is definitely a welcome and proper use of federal funds.
All right, let me ask you this, Mr. Secretary. We've talked about the Rebuilding American infrastructure with sustainability, equity initiative, and all designed to improve the connectivity nationwide. We're talking about somewhere in the neighborhood, I was reading, like $1.5 billion that are going to be involved with this here. This demonstrates significant local and regional economic impacts with these numbers, right?
Absolutely. Every time we're able to make one of these investments, from a six-figure grant to help with street safety all the way up to the multi-billion-dollar efforts we have rebuilding tunnels that have needed work for decades, all of that adds up to jobs and opportunity for people in the communities that are affected. And we've already got projects going on in every state and territory. So this really is something that, from our biggest cities to our most rural areas, is bringing benefit. And to me, there's really two rounds of economic benefit. First, it's the jobs working on the project itself. If you're involved in replacing a bridge or improving an airport terminal or working on one of these road projects, those are good paying construction jobs that we're excited about. But then when the project is complete and the construction is done, that's when it's supporting jobs every day by enhancing the economy. The supply chain's a little smoother, the commute a little easier, whatever that particular project benefit is. That's an investment in a stronger economy for the future. And by the way, also, That's part of our fight against inflation. Part of what led to inflation was a spike in shipping costs, and anything we can do to help make sure things move more smoothly, to make sure there's more fluid movement of goods, which, by the way, includes acting on things like detention time, things that waste time and money for drivers. That also helps us beat back those price increases that have been such a concern in our economy the last couple of years.
When you look at this overall, Mr. Secretary, where do you see maybe some of the vulnerabilities to the domestic freight corridors out there today? What areas of concern do you see?
Well, we've seen improvement in our ports, but we need to keep investing there to keep up with demand. Same thing with our roads and bridges. We're getting the money moving, but now we really need to see delivery of those projects. I'm concerned about compensation. We've got a study going on right now with FMCSA to make sure that we shine a light on what it's going to take for us to not just recruit but retain people in supply chains, particularly in trucking. We've got some concerns around predatory leasing practices. So we're working with a truck leasing task force to make sure that we're doing everything we can as a watchdog on that. And I want to make sure that this is a great career for women as well as men. We got a Women of Trucking Advisory Board. They're going to deliver a final report after meeting several times over the last year on some steps that we might be able to take to help make sure that everybody has a place in that career. So those are some areas where there have been pain points, but there's also action that I think is going to make a difference for the future.
Talk about the Office of Multimodal Freight Infrastructure and Policy. That was announced just recently. What is going to be the role of that office there? They're going to be overseeing the maintenance of the freight networks and the supply chains. What's behind that?
Yeah, the idea here is to really bring all of the different things we have going on around supply chains and freight in this department under one roof. Make sure there's one office that's tracking all of these different activities. You can imagine between our Maritime Administration that's working with the ports, our FMCSA that focuses on trucking, including truck safety, Federal Highway Administration working on highway improvements, rail, all of those things are all part of the bigger picture. And this multimodal freight office, which is created as part of that bipartisan infrastructure law that President Biden signed about 2 years ago now, that's going to work with the states. We're working with every state to make sure they have a strong freight plan, providing technical assistance for state and local governments, overseeing what we call the National Multimodal Freight Network, which is our way of mapping the big picture here. And they're running a partnership called FLOW, which is a way of making sure there's better data sharing between ocean shippers, terminal operators, cargo owners, and ports and other players across supply chains to get the information out that's going to help decision makers make better informed choices about how goods are moving.
All right, let me ask you this, Mr. Secretary, as far as like bipartisan support on Capitol Hill for many of these initiatives, what are you seeing as far as that goes? Hands reaching across the aisle, bipartisan support? How do you see that?
In many ways, yes. We got this bill done with bipartisan support. A lot of Republicans were willing to work with Democrats, work with President Biden, work with me and others in the administration to get this bill passed. So that's the good news. I do have a little bit of concern with what I'm seeing in the House Republican budget. They're proposing a lot of cuts that would affect things like rail safety grants that we use to make sure we have the best rail infrastructure. The Port Infrastructure Development Program, we've been using that to make sure that there's improvements everywhere from a relatively small port like Monroe, Michigan, where I was on the shores of Lake Erie about a week ago, to places like Long Beach that are in the news a lot that have so much container shipping going on there. Really asking, I know there's tough choices to be made, and I know there's disagreements between the parties, but really asking the House Republicans to think twice before they keep pushing to cut something like that. Because I think at the end of the day, especially among the American people, this is a bipartisan priority. You don't have to be a Republican or Democrat to think we've got to have good roads, bridges, highways, trains, ports, all the rest of it, and to recognize the importance of supporting those truck drivers and other critical supply chain workers that we count on every day.
Let me ask you this, Mr. Secretary, one last question. We're going into the presidential election cycle, 2024, right around the corner, and it seems like the media is going to be focusing a lot of their attention on the political races that are going to be going on. Are you concerned that many of the issues that the DOT is trying to fix, alleviate, may get overshadowed by the news of the day? How do you see that?
Well, look, I think it's no secret that a lot of the negativity can command attention. It can drive news cycles, but that's part of why you're going to be seeing me out on the road all the time, whether it's events like we did for Truck Driver Appreciation Week in South Dakota or travel I've got coming up next week to highlight some of the railroad improvements we're making, to make sure we do tell that story, shine a light on the good work, often good bipartisan work that's happening. There's always a lot of political noise, especially in a year like what next year is going to be. But we've got to make sure people understand the good work that's happening, understand it didn't just happen on its own. It was President Biden's leadership and the willingness of certain Republicans to work with Democrats to get this done. That's why we're getting the new bridges and tunnels and airports and port improvements and everything else. So we're going to keep working to try to cut through that noise, focus on the positive, focus on the things we're getting done, and listen too, and make sure we're hearing from everyone who has a stake, from the communities that are seeking these transportation improvements, to anybody from an airline passenger to a truck driver who is counting on our department to take care of them and support them. We want to be out there in listen mode as well as selling the accomplishments we're so proud of as a department, as an administration.
All right, outstanding. Mr. Secretary, thank you very much for joining us on the program. Very much appreciate you joining us on the show. And that is Department of Transportation Secretary Pete Buttigieg. And, sir, wishing you all the best for the holiday season. Come back and join us again real soon.
Sounds good. Thanks, and same to you.